All right. So this video is more focused for beginners, as I am a beginner, and I think Drambo is daunting for a lot of times for beginners because it's a lot going on and a lot you can do, and a lot of the people that use it that make videos are so I don't want to call them intellectual geniuses, maybe a little bit over exaggerating, but they're really good at all this connecting and putting together these pieces that sometimes they overlook the simple things that most people forget. So I'm going to focus this video on some simple things that you may or may not know. And the first thing is, generally when you open a project, you'll see there are templates right here. The templates are super helpful in getting started. So for instance, the one I probably use the most is this 8 tracks MIDI to CV one. But since Drambo works on the phone, and sometimes I'm on the phone and sometimes I'm on the iPad, you'll see up here I have an iPhone template. And in that template, it's more focused on the things that I don't have that I use, the things I use in both the iPad version as well as the iPhone version, because like for instance, Fab Filter is not available. So I use tone boosters as a substitute for the master chains and different effects and things of that nature. So I highly suggest, if you're using this on the iPad or even on the iPhone, make yourself a template, especially if you're just starting out and you're not, so that you save yourself some time. Because you'll look up in like 2-3 hours later and you still haven't done anything. That's how intense it can be. Another thing that I've come to appreciate is being able to label things helps me remember as a noob where things are. So the main is basically your master channel. I mean, not master channel. Let me rephrase that. Is your mixer channel. And I know they call it main, but I do wish they would call it mixer, because that's more or less what it is a mixer, right? You see all your channels together and you can basically, but the interesting thing is you can change it yourself. So if you'd prefer to have mixer like I do, Drambo has made it very efficient to name things. And so that's huge. Being able to put things in a way that you can remember what it is going to help you in the long run. Remember, everything in Drambo works from left to right. So that's how you want to keep it in your, so that you can be focused on it. However, you can go in and change a lot of the things that are going on in here. So I don't think anything is 100% has to be this way, but it's nice if you keep some type of simple layout for yourself so you don't get confused, especially when you first start. So label your tracks. Make that easy for yourself by doing that. Go into each one. Once you complete one, if you decide that's what it's going to be, label. Another thing is, depending on what device you're building this on, if you're on the M1, you may not have this problem, but I've noticed sometimes that I'll have a crash here or there. So make sure you save your work. I'll be saving this one in just a minute. Let me just hit save. Boom. So it's saved. Okay. The other thing is that I was going to say is, even though it starts with 8 tracks, you can add more tracks. So let's talk about that. Over here, you see this plus. If you hit the plus, there's a track right under device. You see where it says track? You click that and it'll add another track. So it's just that easy. I'm going to take it away because I don't really want to add anymore. I made this template, the iPhone template, with 12 tracks. That's probably more than I need, but I wanted to have those extra 4 tracks just in case for some reason I actually need them. And if you see, I only use 6 on this one here. But I've thought of other ways that I might use them. For instance, sometimes I like my drums. Like in this case, well, it took koala out, so that's right. I used koala, but I'll have to put some drums in to match that. But whatever. Let me see if it messed anything else up real quick. So another thing is with koala, if you decide to use it in here, make sure you save the song or the samples or whatever you want to call it. If it's a drum kit, save it as a drum kit so you know what you're going to be using. Otherwise, you'll lose the sounds. Because koala works that way pretty much in AUM too. You need to save in koala as well as AUM. Same thing with Drambo, saving both locations. But going back to what we were talking about. So the mixer, having that labeled now helps you to be able to understand where everything goes and what it is. So usually this purple track right here that I'm going to move just so you can see it is labeled A. And this one right next to it is labeled B. And these are, in theory, your effects tracks that you would have. So in like Ableton, you might have a drum bus track, or you might have one below. It's a return effect, right? You can add and use it to send stuff out. And it's routed, as you can see the knob, basically in that fashion. So what I do is, or what I like to do is, label them what I'm going to actually be. So I have drum bus, and I kept the A just so I know that that's A and this is B. Drum bus A or track effects B. And if you look, well, this is really cool. Drambo, if you look under any of these tracks, like here's the perks, you'll see there's the drum bus and there's the track effects. So it actually adopts the name that you put on the track that it's linked to, right? Because these knobs are linked to this track and allow me to do this. Basically, so, well, this one took my RX 950 out. I'll have to go find the RX 950. I don't have it downloaded on the iPad. But anyway, it allows me to put certain things that I want on the drum effects. Now, if I was doing this another way that I usually would, I would probably use the multi-out in Koala and then have the kicks on one, snare on one, hat, so on and so forth. But I'm not there yet and don't know if I really want to do that in Drambo, because I'm using Drambo kind of in a different way to explore more of the stuff that I don't do typically musically typically. Yeah. So that's just my workflow right now, but it's going to evolve as time goes on. I'll make changes and adjust things. Right here, you can see the notes. This is to adjust your velocity, gate, offset, probability, retrigger, cycles, so on and so forth. And then you have, let's see, what was the other one I wanted to show you? Oh, down here. So one of the cool things that people saw in the other video I did, man, all my stuff is not showing up. I guess I have to download a decent sampler on here. So you'll see it's missing a few items, so it's probably not going to play appropriate or properly. But one of the things that I do in here is I want to play chords in, because that's kind of how I work. Now there's all kinds of ways to do the randomization. I think in the previous video, I recorded the chords into a flexi sampler and then just chopped them up and let it play randomly. But if I don't want to play randomly, I like to record into the chords using like a tonality, for instance. So what I did in tonality was, if you click here, you can map with this little square with the circle in the right corner. You can map a key or a button down here to play chords. So in Scalar, you have the ability to move chords down and put them in a little pattern and then play that pattern only. In in tonality, you don't have that, but what you can do is map it. So whatever chords you're going to use, just map them to the notes. By pressing that, hold the key down, and then press the note on Drambo. So press this one if you're going to map. Like this is my first one. So then I just mapped it to here. See? So whichever chord I'm going to use. All right. So then I did that, right? And then if I had, I'm going to switch this for right now just so you can hear what I'm talking about. I'm going to put in pure upright, which is fine. We'll move it over to like this. Let's use the cinematic. All right. Now, for a lot of people, this is confusing because these are like drum pads and there's no note here. So if you want to switch that, you can see over here on the right-hand corner on this right side, this little button can switch between the keyboard and the pads. It's the same thing. But with the keyboard, what's beautiful about that is if you're used to playing keyboard, it's much easier to understand what's going on here. The pads can get quite confusing, and you got to look down and make sure you're at C2 and all that stuff. Keyboard has the C2 here, right? So you can kind of follow that method, whichever one works. But that's a cool feature to have that you might want to utilize if you're going to play chords or play anything like that. Triggering, etc. So here's a radio. I, again, use Flexi Sampler and sample into it. This one here was just so I could get the tune of what key that sample was in, and then I just adjusted the pitch. So you can use any tuner you want right there. You don't really need it, by the way. All right, I'm going to save this one like that. So this is kind of what it sounds like. It's not completely this way because I had to change some of the stuff, obviously. But here's the other thing that I was saying that is really cool. Being able to touch this button here that's right by this strip, right next to between the record and that strip, allows you not only to adjust the length of how many bars you want to use, but also the speed, which is really cool. So you could, let's say like maybe you want the perks, which is just fractal. Maybe you want that to slow down and be like half time. Right? And then you want the bass to do the same. Or speed up. So it's pretty cool. You can use the this little feature to speed up a sample, slow it down, pitch it, you know. So it keeps the pitch intact, but it just plays it at a slower speed, right? Versus like when you're in oops, I didn't mean to do that. when you're in this one, if you change the pitch here, it's going to literally change the pitch of the sample. So on the flexi sample, that is. So use both of them. Maybe you want to pitch the sample a little bit, but then you want to pitch it with the speed. So you could. Now I'm going to go to the mixer and solo it so you can hear it. That's just a drone I picked off the radio. But if you do slow it down, you'll see it takes longer, so you may have to put another note in. So I'm going to put that back at 1. Oh wait, I turned the perks on. I apologize. Hold on 1 second. That was the wrong track. Where's the drone? All right, the radio sample. So I have that one playing at half speed right already. I speed it up. Let's play it at half. So that's some of the cool things that I appreciate about it. Now I have the effects bus B I have on almost every track. And what's cool is you can adjust the amount that is affecting that track. This is kind of like Ableton, in my opinion. I have 2 bus returns in Ableton. I probably only use 1 sometimes for the drums and rarely use the other, but it's nice to have that ability if you want to do that. If it's, especially on like a older iPad or like one that is not the M1, I should say, where you don't want to use as many effects because you might crash it or something of that nature. So yeah, you could just use 1. Okay, where were we? Why does the mixer have, shouldn't be anything on that. Okay. All right. So those are just a few things that I appreciate about Drambo that I use probably the most. Another thing is, quite like AUM, these little buttons you can see up here can record out each track individually, and then you can record the master. So if you don't want the master, then just turn this top one off. It reflects the master, right? And then you can just record the tracks out. I don't mind recording all of them, why not? But, and then hit record, or hit play and it'll record it out. And then you can sit there and live perform. That's another thing that you can do in AUM too, that I appreciate, is being able to do that live performance. Some cool tools, and the mutes and solos are probably what I use the most for live stuff. But I think in theory you could add one of your tracks or channels could be maybe set up for like Aquala effects or something to that nature, to where you want to affect the whole mix, right? And then you could just go to town and having fun and exploring. But I'll do some more videos. This is just one that I wanted to touch base on some of the things in Drambo. This is standalone. You can use Drambo in other things like Loopy Pro or AUM, which is cool. But right now, I personally want to learn Drambo by itself before I start really spending too much time trying to push it into Ableton. Trying to push it into AUM or other things like that. Because what happens is if I use AUM, I won't use Drambo that much. Because AUM is a pretty dope mixer. And it would take me away from spending much time in Drambo and learning Drambo so that I could be more efficient at it. That's my hopes, is to be able to do that. It's going to take some time, but it gives me something to work on, and I get bored really easy, so this is nice, in my opinion. so many cool little things you can do. I was gonna put one of those um, food. I think I said it right this time. Food machine on the melody, but then I was like, well, I'll just write a melody. So I ended up writing a melody, which actually, let's see if we can follow it. Something simple. So I'm having a lot of fun. Hopefully you're enjoying Drambo. If you already know how to use it, you probably already got all the goods and continuing to grow with it. But for the newbies, this is a fun tool. Explore it. Take your time. Don't feel rushed because there's a lot to learn. And yeah, so start adding just a little bit into your workflow to see how you enjoy it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it like I've grown to enjoy it. So all right, comments, questions, whatever in the section below, and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll find the answer for you, or ask someone at least, right, to try to help you out. All right, well, that's it for this one, and I'm out.